everybody, it is Steve, your friendly neighborhood lawn gnome. Welcome back to another video over here on That's Comical. And if you're watching and it happens to be a Wednesday, happy new comic book day. Well, everybody, I am so glad that we are here today because this is a video that's really been in the works for quite some time, just because of the fact that we knew it was going to be a very special occasion. And that is, of course, that this year we are celebrating the 30th anniversary of what may be not only one of the greatest comic book series on the history of television or in animation in general, but probably one of the greatest depictions of the iconic Batman from DC Comics. And that, of course, is the celebration of the 30th anniversary of the Bruce Timm created Batman the Animated Series. Something that is near and dear to many people's hearts, something that possibly could have been the stepping stone for people to go into the world of Batman and further into the world of DC Comics and comics in general. But I'm just very excited to have a fellow Batman fan and one of the more appropriate Batman fans to have here. And that, of course, is Andy. Andy, it's always great to see you. I would have let you finish your coffee, so please take that sip before you say your, your hellos. Please, drink.
Okay, there it is. Hi, everybody. Really happy to be here. Steve, this is going to be a good one. I obviously love the Batman animated series, and we got a bunch to say.
So I want to just ask you a question. So clearly, not that many people know this, but we're not going to get into any crazy details. You and I have a really big age gap in regards to how old we are. And
I guess that's true.
And I said this to my wife the other day, and she actually thought it was funny. I said, when Andy and I are hanging out together, what does it actually mean? Is it mean that I am just acting too young for my age, or is Andy wise beyond his years? We don't know. We don't exactly know, but Jen thought that was actually something interesting to ponder. But
a little column A, a little column B.
Maybe. But as somebody who did get some legendary Batman stories read to him as bedtime stories from his father, I would definitely say for a solid fact that you were a very young person when Batman the Animated Series first aired on television. I had just turned 10 years old when Batman aired on Fox 5 for kids in 1992. Yeah. So I am just curious to know, because you were probably still in diapers at the time. Did your dad put you in front of the TV to watch it while you were a baby?
Yes. The short answer is yes. I only would have really started enjoying the show on my own at somewhere around season 4, when I was old enough to be sentient and watching the first episodes in syndication. My dad, however, watched the show from the beginning, as I think a lot of Batman fans did, because dear God, is it an incredible show. And looking back on it now, there's and I mean, you alluded to it in your intro there. There's definitely an argument to be made that the Batman animated series is one of, if not the best depictions of the Batman character. And there's a lot of reasons for that I won't go into in the brief intro. But you know, it is a show that is core to my development.
Well, I will definitely say that I didn't really jump on the train as quickly as everybody else. I mean, for me personally, this was like an interesting thing when they started making the advertisements for it during the commercials for other cartoons that I was watching at the time. And that was basically a mixture of Disney Afternoon and reruns of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, because I was one of the few children in the world that still did not have cable. I actually did not get cable TV in my parents' house until I was 15 years old. So I missed like everything from the late 80s and the 90s that were on Nickelodeon and later on in Cartoon Network. But anyway, I digress. I was excited for this show merely because of the fact that I was a kid that grew up watching Batman in animation through things like the Super Friends and the Scooby-Doo movies. So it was definitely something different. But because of the fact that it was airing on weekdays, it was very hard for me to catch it, just because of the fact that I was coming home from school and then going straight to do my homework. So I may have caught 1 or 2 episodes every now and again, particularly on Fridays, but then, of course, around that exact same time, the X-Men animated series came out on Saturday mornings, and I was taping those nonstop, and that was basically my bread and butter. But Batman was still there, and people were constantly saying, oh my goodness, this show, so amazing, so brilliant. And then when I finally had the ability to watch many, many episodes, I think that was right around the time when Superman, the animated series, was coming out by the same creative team, Bruce Timm, Alan Burnett, Paul Dini. So I was basically saying to myself, this is something truly special. And it's not just the style of the animation, it was the stories, how they were so beautifully done. They didn't feel like anything that was not, it was a show that was not necessarily for kids. It was very family friendly, as dark as it was, but it was something that children and adults could enjoy. And of course, you had some of the big names in animation dropping, some I've already mentioned, but probably the biggest name that I will always hold near and dear to my heart outside of Bruce Timm is Andrea Romano, the voice director. Just her deciding that she wasn't going to get voice actors, she was actually going to get actors to voice some of these characters outside of Kevin Conroy, who is the most well-known Batman depiction. Like, whenever you think of Batman, you think of Kevin Conroy, and probably right after that, Michael Keaton or Adam West, like right off the bat. But
to
also,
the point where when new animated projects are announced, the first question on everyone's mind is, are they getting him to voice Batman?
But I think one thing that I must talk about, and we'll talk about it a little further on, I mean, I'm just grateful for this show because this show officially no longer had Mark Hamill typecast as Luke Skywalker. He is now, when people talk about his greatest performance, they say, oh, he's the Joker. He's the Joker. And absolutely true. He is my favorite version of the Joker too. So
and didn't they have Tim Curry and then he backed out of it?
And
that's how Mark Hamill got the role. I don't want to talk out of turn, but I think that's my Batman animated series trivia for the day. Which also sounds cool, but aren't we glad that we got Mark Hamill?
Not that I mean, it would have been great to see Tim Curry showing up as somebody, you know, because Tim Curry is an amazing actor. I love Tim Curry.
No, this is not a knock against Tim Curry. That actually sounds like it would be very fun to watch. And
also, what was breaking true ground with a show like Batman the Animated Series is the fact that this was a show that would introduce original characters, and eventually they would all show up in the comic books. I mean, if it wasn't for Batman the Animated Series, we wouldn't have Harley Quinn.
Gee, I wonder if any of our favorite episodes will reference Impact on the comics. Gee, I
mean, this is a big name in the world of DC Comics now, and I still remember when people were talking about Harley Quinn and how much they loved her, and they're like, but she's not even in the comics. And eventually she got her own title, and now she's shown up in so many comics in the world of DC. And I absolutely appreciate the fact that Bruce Timm did something like that. And he did the same thing for Superman later on with characters like Luminous and Livewire, which I also really appreciate.
Yeah. You know, I should add, I am nowhere near as intimately familiar with the Superman series. Compared to this, it's a good show, and I like what I've seen. But the Batman animated series, you know, I'm like intimately familiar with, right?
Yeah, I mean, they're both excellent shows. I mean, all these shows that Bruce Timm has created, whether it's Batman Beyond or Teen Titans, or of course the Justice League series, which are brilliantly written. Wonderful. I love those shows so much. And all the animated movies.
Superman less than any of those for some reason. Teen Titans, Justice League. I know them all very well. It's specifically Superman.
I have to be honest, Andy. You really need to watch the series.
It's sure.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
It's really great.
It's not like Bruce Timm misses, so yeah.
I mean, especially considering the fact that it has that excellent 3-part episode with Batman crossing over. I mean, that's a great series of episodes. I
know that.
I mean, it's like watching Jetsons meet the Flintstones when Joker walks into Lex Luthor's limo and they have a conversation, or when Harley Quinn has a fist fight with Mercy. I mean, it's just awesome. You know, it's great. But anyway, what we thought would be the best way to celebrate Batman the Animated Series in the way that that's comical could was to just talk about our top 3 favorite episodes and why are they so great and what are some of the best moments and what it is about these specific episodes that are near and dear to our hearts. So we're just going to basically bounce back and forth. I mean, I will say that I'm a little upset that Cammie could not make it. She's a big fan of this show as well. And she was supposed to come today, but a little family thing was going on that she had to take a part in it. So she said, you guys cannot wait for me. You've been pushing this off for too long. Please just do this without me. And I'll be looking forward to reading, watching, and commenting. So thanks, Cammie. We appreciate that. We wish you could be here. But anyway, Andy, let's get started. What is in your top 3 episodes? What is your number 3?
So that's the tricky one, right? I came into this conversation with a solid 1 and 2 and really not knowing what I wanted to say for 3. So first I'm going to attempt to just cheat. So first I'm going to attempt to say, how mad would you be if what I said was, can we count Mask of the Phantasm?
I would say, can we leave the Mask of the Phantasm for an episode on its own?
Fair enough.
Because we're going to talk about it soon.
In that case, I think I'm going to say Mad Love as my number 3.
Okay.
And so, you know, it's certainly not the first appearance of Harley Quinn, but it's a very great story, and it's a wonderful story to adapt the comic that brought her into comics. And so I find it to be my choice for the best Harley Quinn episode. And there's a few choices for that, right?
Yeah.
And there will be debate over that. For me, it's Mad Love. And my reasoning for picking this as my 3rd is there's a lot of episodes that almost made the cut here. And I just figure I want to give a little bit of credit to the importance of the Harley Quinn character. So I also, for the record, hate like favorites. It's like stressful for me and difficult, and I just love so many things. So that's how I'm doing it, and I don't feel comfortable with it, but it's
okay. So if I can make sure that I know this is, I believe, from the 4th season.
Yes.
And this is the episode where you actually see what Harley Quinn was like when she was Dr. Harleen Quinzel.
This is Harleen Quinzel. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
That's an episode that I did see. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's adapted from the comic of the same name, which was written and created kind of as part of bringing Harley Quinn over into the world of comics as well. And I think they do a phenomenal job adapting it. I think they do a phenomenal job showing off the Harley Quinn character. I think it's a great episode of Batman. I think it looks wonderful, which something that I will say throughout all of this is, if gun to my head, I had to pick one thing that is the defining wonderful piece of what is the special sauce that makes this show work, it's the look and the art direction. And I think you get that in Mad Love in spades as well.
Right. No, that's an excellent episode. It's definitely an interesting look into Harley Quinn before she becomes, it really is her origin story. And it's also a great way to weave the Joker into it. I mean, pretty much when it comes to people's favorite episodes, the Joker is almost always the main villain in that one. I mean, I'll just basically say for now, there are actually 2 of my top 3 that actually feature him in the show. So it's funny that you specifically mentioned Mad Love, because of the fact that my number 3 is also from season number 4, and it's called Old Wounds. And the reason why I love this episode so much, and the reason why I believe that this was worthy to be in here, is because one of the few things that I say that I love so much about Batman the Animated Series is that it's a very serious show. And they finally gave us a show where the character of Robin, and even in this specific episode, Batgirl, are serious characters as well. Because in the world of comics in the 1960s and 70s, with the comics code in full force, they made the series very campy. You can trace it all back to Burt Ward in the 1966 series, and even, unfortunately, in the last 2 Schumacher films of the original Batman quadrilogy, with Batman Forever and Batman and Robin. You know, like, they just never took this character seriously. Same thing with Batgirl and Batman and Robin. But Batman the Animated Series, I mean, especially when the episode of Robin's Reckoning showed up, you know, that 2-parter, that's where you really see a great serious side to Robin. But what I also really appreciate is Bruce Timm using Robin, because he doesn't just want to make him as dark and as brooding as Batman. He wanted him to be the thing that prevented Batman from crossing that line. And they make him more talkative. They give him some really funny lines. I will say what's very funny about my top 3 is all 3 of them include Batman and Robin. So
interesting.
Yeah, because I just have so much fun with those 2 characters together, specifically on this show. But Old Wound is an excellent series, is an excellent episode because it's a story, a flashback based on a conversation that the Tim Drake Robin in this series is having with Dick Grayson, who is now Nightwing, and how he finally gets the story as to why Dick is Nightwing now. And it was a very interesting thing to actually see the chemistry between these 2 characters literally breaking down because of the fact that Dick is taking the next stage of his life. He graduates college. He has a very serious relationship with Barbara Gordon. And Batman is still reaching out to him to be the Robin to his Batman. And Robin is just trying to build his life. And what's very interesting is there's a scene in the show where it looks like Batman is crossing that line that he has been told for so many years under Batman's tutelage not to cross, and yet here he is watching Batman doing something in front of a possible criminal's wife and child, and he says to Batman, "Not like this." And Batman just ignores him. And what's even more interesting is the fact that throughout the Batman animated series, Batgirl has shown up to work with Batman and Robin, but they never actually did know that Barbara was actually Batgirl, although Batman seemed to realize it right away. And
he's Batman.
And when Dick finds out about it, he's crushed. He cannot believe that Batman knew and he never told him, to the point where he literally says, "I've had enough, I quit." And it all ends with Batman trying to get Dick to come back, and then Dick just punches Bruce in the face. And actually, what's so interesting about that is the fact that not only does he punch Batman in the face, but Batman goes down to the floor. And that's the part that's really impactful. And then he just rips off his cape and his mask and he goes. But what's so nice about the end of that episode is where Tim basically tells Dick, maybe it's time to actually make up, you know? And then just, you don't have to be his Robin anymore. You can be another hero and fight alongside Batman, fighting the fight that you have been fighting for all these years.
Talk about a mature plot line, which
It's
is something
wonderful.
we should really drive home about the series. Is when I say mature plot line, I don't mean gritty, grim, dark, violent, brutal. What I mean, emotional depth, and something that it's really, really wonderful that this show was able to get created and able to do the things that it did. It's actually shocking. A lot of it made it onto television as a quote unquote kids show, but because there's depths to it that you wonder, how many kids truly appreciate the full narrative of some of these. But it's wonderful, and I'm glad it exists. And I do think it shows respect for the audience that these kind of plot lines existed.
To a certain degree, I will agree, but then I will also disagree with you, and that's just because of the fact that it's got a lot of things that maybe young children wouldn't understand, but the real truth of the matter is they managed to create a deep, thought-provoking, mature show that doesn't have anything in it that would actually make it not appropriate for children. I mean,
it is not inappropriate. It is not inappropriate by any stretch. It's just mature.
What's interesting is the one time where blood is actually seen in Batman the Animated Series happens to be the first episode on Leather Wings. And after that, you never really see any blood on the show per se when it came to actual violence on the show. So they literally just were able to work around all those different corners and angles and still manage to give them meaning the audience, the vision that they had for this show, and it's really done beautifully.
Yeah, yeah.
So, what is your second favorite episode?
My second favorite is a little easier because since I kind of went 1, 2, 3 in my mind, 3 is the one where I had to put things on the chopping block. So I like this episode just about as much as the other 2 that I'm going to name, even though it's in the middle slot, right? There's just a lot of stuff to pick from. So I've decided Legends of the Dark Knight is my number 2. And so a big part of the reason for that is, as I alluded to, gun to my head, if I had to pick one thing, the defining part, the secret sauce that makes the show as great as it is the look. I think that they get to play around within the confines of the art style so much by the nature of what the episode is. So for people who need a refresher, this is the one where the kids are telling stories about what they know about Batman. They go into a Frank Miller section, they go into like a Golden Age section, and really the animators get to play with the style of the show. And what I love so much about it is how fitting both of the like alternate sections are in the episode. And it's interesting. It covers a few things that you were just talking about, Steve. So with us talking about the maturity of the show, but not like a lot of like blood and that kind of violence, but always like very impactful. And if you really think about what's going on, there's a darkness to so much of the show. I think the Frank Miller scene does that very, very well, because while there isn't blood, good Lord, is it brutal. And anyone watching that at the time it came out, when they realized they were about to see a Frank Miller adaptation, was probably thinking, what is about to happen in the next 6 or 7 minutes on my screen? And then of course the Golden Age section is also wonderful with the classic like big set piece props and
Yeah,
with the the
it's got
funny jokes.
exactly.
It's the voice is nailed. It's
Ah,
exactly what you'd expect
yeah. I
from
mean, you
that
know who
period of the
voices the
comics.
Joker in that one, right?
I'm actually blanking.
Oh, okay. Well, first of all, I agree with you 100% on everything. That's Michael McKean voicing the Joker in that
Yes.
specific scene. And you're absolutely right. That was like a take on the Steve Englehart Silver Age,
Yeah.
actually. That's what it really was. But
Yeah.
it was,
Yes.
but yeah, the Frank Miller one, the fun fact is I actually just caught the end of that episode when it first aired. And I was like,
Did you?
and I was like, hold on a second, because I was definitely in my early teens at that specific point,
Yeah.
because I think that was when, because that's also a season 4 episode. So that was when
It is.
Superman,
That's near the very end of the run. Yeah.
right. So Superman the Animated Series had actually been out for about a year or 2, actually. So that was when they were doing the new Batman Superman Adventures, where they were finally giving us the 4th season of Batman the Animated Series. Yes. So yeah, I was like watching that. I was like, wait a second, that's like The Dark Knight Returns. And I was like,
Yep.
it was really cool to actually see an animated version of Carrie Kelly. I really liked that. I was going to
say, again, imagining someone who is already deeply invested in the Batman universe, as soon as the episode starts and you see her essentially as one of the kids, you know that as soon as it became apparent what they were doing in the episode, people were sitting there thinking, oh man, we are about to see Dark Knight Returns.
I was just so impressed by the fact that they were able to actually do that. And, and I was also very thankful that I had actually read that comic already, because that was like when I was reading all the good stuff like that and Kingdom Come and all that stuff at the time. So yeah, I had already read The Dark Knight Returns, so I was really glad because I got everything. Mm-hmm. And, who would have thought that eventually, decades later, we would actually get a 2-part animated film of The Dark Knight Returns, which is absolutely brilliant.
Yeah. But God, do I love the take on it in the animated series. I mean, I must. I decided to place this as my number 2. So yeah, a huge part of the reasoning there is the visuals. I just find it a feast for the eyes. The whole episode is exciting and wonderful. And you even get a little bit of a Joel Schumacher joke in the middle of that episode. With the kid who thinks, oh, Batman, he's got that tight leather suit and all that.
Hello, bat nipples. But so my second favorite episode is actually the second episode that I ever watched entirely. And it also happens to be episode 2. And it's Christmas with the Joker.
Oh, right. I was
Christmas with the
trying to think. You said it
Joker.
was a Joker episode. You said these were Joker episode or
Yeah, Christmas with the
Robin episodes.
Joker. Yeah, because in Old Wounds, the Joker is one of the villains in the story, but the truth of the matter is you don't necessarily need to talk about him because he's sort of in the background. He's not really the main focus. The main focus of Old Wounds is the relationship between Batman and Robin, and throw Batgirl into that mix as well.
Yes.
But Christmas with the Joker is the first time that Robin shows up on the show. And that was a very good episode because a lot of people were curious because they sort of kept Robin hidden. Like they didn't let you know, is he going to be on the show? Is he not going to be on the show? And I like the fact that they gave this version of Robin the Tim Drake look from the late 80s, early 90s, and they made him a much more mature character rather than just a kid. Like they made him a high schooler, which I thought was really nice. And it was just... It's the first time that we ever saw the Joker on Batman the Animated Series with Mark Hamill voicing him. And I love how it opens up with him singing Jingle Bells, Batman Smells from Simpsons Roasting on an Open Fire, which is awesome. But no, it's just one of the most hilarious episodes because of the fact that they literally just put that microphone in front of Mark Hamill and say, just do what you do.
Go
and
ahead,
do it well.
yeah.
Just have it at it. And he brings the thunder in that entire episode. It's like, I love the scene where like Batman foils one of his plans. So he goes, oh, I hate Batman. Let's blow him up. And he basically has like cardboard cutouts of an audience with Batman and Robin in this studio that he's officially hijacked. And he literally blows up all the cardboard.
Yeah.
It's just so funny. Or like the whole scene with the Betty Blooper doll. But the best part about that episode is when Batman and Robin finally figured out where he is, and they're running through this old toy factory, and then you see the Joker watching them, and he gives this hilarious, sinister, low-pitched laugh. It's one of the funniest laughs that ever came out of Mark Hamill. Like, if I ever met Mark Hamill, I would ask him, how did you come up with that specific laugh? Because you never did that in another episode as the Joker.
Yeah.
What caused you to do that?
And
like that's just
absolutely
great
iconic. Absolutely iconic. Yeah, that's a great one to pick to really and to highlight how important Mark Hamill was to the show. Yeah, that's a great choice.
Yeah, and I also really appreciated the dynamic that we finally saw between Batman and Robin. And like I said, it's wonderful because Robin, you can tell that Robin idolizes Batman and he's really trying to make sure that he follows in his footsteps. But it's also really interesting to see how he is still trying to get the most out of life because he literally is trying to tell Batman, why are we going out? Why can't we just enjoy Christmas Eve? Let's have Christmas dinner. Let's watch It's a Wonderful Life. Let's just take a night off.
A night off.
And yet Batman keeps telling him, this is the Joker, Robin. Evil doesn't sleep with him.
Yeah.
And I think one of my favorite lines is when he's like saying, can we go home now, Batman? And then Batman doesn't even say a word, and he just gets out his back grappler, he shoots it, he swings, and then you see Robin swinging behind him and goes, oh, well, bah humbug to you too.
To you too.
It's a perfect episode. It's got so many wonderful lines. It's really so memorable. Does. And it's like, it's one of those episodes, like if you're just like flipping through the channels and you see it on, it doesn't matter what.
Stop.
You just have to stop. You got to watch the whole thing.
Yes. Yeah. And it's one that I need to keep in mind. There's something to a great holiday special.
Yes.
You know what? And I'm not just talking about comics. I just mean in general, there's something really special about a great and well done holiday episode, issue, all of that. I need to keep that one firmly in mind come Christmas time this year.
I mean, I did watch like some my favorite animated holiday episodes of all my favorite shows, and not only this one, like I think that the most beautifully done Bruce Timm holiday special in any of his DC animations is from Justice League. When Clark invites John Jones over to his parents for
Oh,
Christmas.
yes.
That's
Yes,
a
yes, yes, yes,
wonderful,
yes.
heartwarming episode. It really is. Or like
Yeah.
when Hawk Girl and Green Lantern go to a foreign planet and go like to a dive bar. They just have a fight at the bar, and Hawk Girl's like, "This is Christmas." No, Bruce Timm knows how to write a great holiday special. He really does.
Yes. Yes. So I would say, Steve, before we get to our top episodes, as a brief interlude, I wanted to quick show off, and I see behind your, I guess it's above your right shoulder, I'm pretty sure I see your Batman animated series DVD
Yeah, there they are,
boxes.
right
That's
over there.
above the Simpsons, right? Yeah,
Above
I
the
see 'em.
Simpsons. Yeah,
I was going to show. So
that's my Bruce Timm collection, actually.
yeah. Before this episode, I rewatched the episodes that I decided to pick. So this is my deluxe edition of the Batman animated Blu-ray, which is fantastic, and I'm glad that this exists.
No, I'm telling you, when they announced that they were finally having the Batman animated series coming out on DVD, it's like, I had this conversation with so many of my friends who collect these types of DVDs and whatnot. And, there's so many shows that I used to watch the kid that came out on DVD over the years. And I was like saying to myself, yeah, I loved these shows when I was a kid, but am I really going to make time to watch these as an adult? Outside
this one.
Oh, no. The minute they announced that Batman animated series was coming out, I said, there's no hesitation. I'm going to pick all of these series up, and I'm still collecting animated series that are made by DC Animation right now. I'm right now wondering when they're going to release Young Justice Season 4 and when they're going to release Harley Quinn Season 3, because I am collecting them, because I do watch those shows. And these are different. These are not average cartoons. These are for fans of Batman, fans of comics, fans of animation. That's what Batman the Animated Series and beyond from Bruce Timm actually is.
Yeah, and that extends to while I haven't seen the entirety of it in a fairly long time at this point, that extends to my love of Batman Beyond. I really would love to pick up my own copy of Batman Beyond and really dig into those and watch them again. I rewatched that series when I was in college. The aforementioned times that have come up on this show where I was getting back into comics, and I discovered how much I loved Batman Beyond at that time. I should really check that out again.
I am almost certain that both Batman Beyond and Superman the Animated Series recently got brand new deluxe edition Blu-ray releases.
They did. Well, at the very least, Batman Beyond did. I haven't paid as close attention to Superman, but to hear you tell it that I should. So
I know that they have. I know they have because if I'm not mistaken, very recently was the 25th anniversary of Superman the Animated Series. So I definitely would say if you've been looking to finally get into it in its entirety, Andy, I'm telling you the truth, you've got to check it out. If you loved Batman and all the other shows that Bruce Timm made, you'll love Superman just the same. I really believe so.
Okay.
So, what is your number one?
All right. Say it with me. Heart of Ice.
I think that was their very first Emmy Award-winning episode. It's beautiful.
I don't know if it was the first, but it definitely was a winner. So it's Heart of Ice. And I think that is a very, prosaic choice to people who know the series. This won't be a particularly shocking one. It's one of the ones that frequently gets talked about as a potential best episode kind of broadly. It's a fan favorite. It's won awards. It checks every box. It's beautiful. It's got great writing. It creates a perfect atmosphere. It has that level of brutality and unspoken violence that is very jarring in a children's but more family show. And most importantly, in the same way that I say Mad Love as my number 3 because of diving into the Harley Quinn character, giving us a little bit of backstory there and connecting it to the comics, back to the comics. So now I'm picking the one where the kind of episode where the animated series defined/redefined a character the first time, right? So before this episode, Mr. Freeze, completely, campy, stuck in the past, the weird, jokey kind of Batman villain. And now with Heart of Ice, he is truly one of the greats in the rogues gallery, with the kind of, you know, melancholy backstory that is given to the character that adds a depth. And it makes for a wonderful half hour of television. It's entertaining, it's emotional, and then it lifts the character Mr. Freeze forever after. It impacts how it even impacted how we saw him in the Batman and Robin movie, which, while not an artful take on the character, it's
No.
interesting to see how impactful that take was so quickly, that that's the version of Mr. Freeze that's gone with, even in a campy, over the top, like jokey
Yeah.
film. But it's the characterization that's been used in the Batman video games, the Arkham series, to great effect. It's how people think of Mr. Freeze in pop culture now. And I want to say, I don't put this as my number one just because of redefining the Mr. Freeze character, but really the center, making him so empathetic and deep. It is a wonderful half hour of television, and goes to show that this is true when I say family entertainment. This series, something for everyone. This is a deep emotional story that's truly mature, and not just mature in the like, haha, guns and violence kind of way, but mature in the emotional depth kind of way. So this this was the easy one for me to pick, because I had a lot of trouble going down to two, and then I had a lot of trouble cutting down to pick a third, because I attempted not to.
Yeah.
But the number one was like, all right, my number one is Heart of Ice, and now where do we go from there?
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. I mean, Mr. Freeze, I remember first seeing Mr. Freeze when I was watching the reruns of the Adam West show, and, you know, very campy. They didn't really do anything with his character. And, you know, even though Arnold Schwarzenegger did play him in Batman and Robin, I still remember they were first trying to think about possibly giving that role to Patrick Stewart.
Yes.
And nothing would have made me laugh so hard than Patrick Stewart turning to one of his henchmen saying, "Number one, make it snow." But no, I mean, Heart of Ice, what was so groundbreaking about that specific episode was this was Bruce Timm basically saying, are all of Batman's rogues gallery, are they all truly villains?
Yeah.
And this was the very first time
Good
that
point.
we actually saw a human story for one of Batman's villains, because yes, he is a criminal. Yes, he does do some cold-blooded things, excuse the pun, but his intentions are for the purposes of trying to put his life back together. He's trying to get his wife back. That's what makes him a true fall from grace character. And that's another thing that I really appreciated about Batman the Animated Series, because I wasn't reading comics as religiously, particularly in DC at the time. I was really reading a lot of Spider-Man and X-Men at the time.
Yeah.
But what was so interesting about Mr. Freeze is the fact that, you know, he was a human. That's really what he was. And also on top of that, I was realizing all of Batman's rogues gallery, maybe except for maybe 3 of them, all of these people were brilliant. Like, we had everything from scientists to law enforcement. Like, all of these people truly were good. And just due to one event that caused their whole world to crumble.
Bad day. Right?
Yeah, literally one bad day.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, they decided to go the way of the villain. I mean, you know that, but and even now to this day, they've been attempting in so many ways to do the same for the Joker. But I don't really know how much so the Batman fandom appreciates the fact they want to do that, because it's like they said in The Dark Knight, some men just want to see the world burn. Why can't we just let Joker continue to sing "The Roof is on Fire"? Like, why can't we get that? You know, like, I don't think they're ever going to make a character like Mr. Zsasz any human than he already is. I don't think they're ever going to do something like that with, well, to a certain degree, Firefly, it has always been a criminal, but he, you know, he has a family, you know, but characters like Poison Ivy and the Mad Hatter and and even the Penguin to a certain degree. You know, like
Now
I
I'm
think
just
what's
thinking about Kite Man. Hell yeah.
hell yeah, hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
So I'm assuming you watched the 3rd season of Harley Quinn.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that they had him date the Golden Glider. That was brilliant writing
Hell
right
yeah.
there.
Yeah, but you're exactly right with all of that. And something that stuck with me, again, like I said, I rewatched these episodes before, doing this today. And I did really like near the end of Heart of Ice, when Batman does, spoilers, stop, Mr. Freeze. What the way that he says it while getting him sent away, and he goes to Arkham, is, it's not about vengeance, it's about justice. And that's interesting, because it's what you're saying, it's Mr. Freeze is relatable, and we see him have that one bad day, and everything stems from just wishing he could have his wife back, and you understand it, and he wants vengeance. So Batman stops him and reveals, GothCorp, everything that's been going on there, kind of like to take them down, and that's justice. And it defines, it's the great thing about Batman, right? The best part of his rogues gallery is what the rogues gallery means for Batman as a foil, each individual character. And so this one adds Mr. Freeze to that list, which cannot be understated how important and impactful it is for the character. Because, I mean, I am vengeance, I am the knight, but nevertheless, there's a difference between seeking justice and just getting revenge. Yeah. And that's the dichotomy that we're exploring in the episode Heart of Ice.
Yes,
it's wonderful.
Yes, and to also piggyback on everything that we've been saying, what I also really appreciate is like characters like Mr. Freeze. What I also really appreciated about Batman the Animated Series was how they took some of the lesser known Batman villains and they really turned them into big names, because now everybody knows Clayface. Everybody knows Killer Croc. Everybody knows the ventriloquist. Like, everybody now knows all these characters.
I put Mad Hatter on that list too.
Well, to a certain degree, yes, and to a certain degree, no, only because of the fact that he was on the original Adam West show. But I love what Batman the Animated Series did with him, as well as allowing Roddy McDowall to voice him. And also, and I will also say, I don't think Two-Face was such a big name until Batman the Animated Series came along. Well, particularly because of the fact that I don't know if you know this, but they wanted to put Two-Face in the Adam West show in the 60s, but because of the way that they had to make him look, the network said, we cannot put this guy on television because he's going to be too scary for kids. So if you haven't seen it yet, you should definitely see the animated film Batman versus Two-Face, which is the very last time that Adam West voiced Batman, or actually was Batman before he passed away. But it was basically supposed to be that last episode of Batman, the series from '66 that never got to television. And also, William Shatner voicing Two-Face. It's a must-see.
Yeah. And I will say that the 2-part episode Two-Face is an honorable mention.
Absolutely.
For me in all of this. I'm kind of like, I'm flipping through my discs here as I took a look. And I should say, Two-Face probably was it Almost Had Him? Almost Got Him?
You just stole that from me. Almost Got Him. That was going to be one of my honorable mentions. I love that episode.
Honorable mention. Yeah.
I love that episode. Another great episode, I love The Man Who Killed Batman.
Yeah.
That is one of my favorite episodes because of what goes on in the Joker's head. Because he's like, he really believes, when he finally realizes that Batman is dead, he's like, crime's just no fun anymore. God, his eulogy to Batman in that episode is priceless.
Priceless.
That is one of my personal favorites. Yeah, that's it. And also another great honorable mention. We also have to say, it's amazing how things come from full circle. Beware the Gray Ghost.
I knew that's what you were going to say.
Just because of the fact that Bruce Timm just took a chance and said, Adam West must hate this character now because of what he did to his career. And he just he reaches out to him and says, do you want to be in my show? And he said yes. And then Seth MacFarlane says, "Would you like to be the mayor of Quahog, Mr. West?" and now it's like at a point where Adam West was looked at as a sincere joke among so many people. The year he passed away, he finally got that justice that he truly deserved. Like we finally realized, thanks to people like Bruce Timm, Adam West is not a joke. Adam West is an icon. Adam West is Batman. And we are going to show you why he is so relevant.
Yeah.
And the fact that he just passed away voicing Batman for his very last piece of work, he just died knowing that he made that impact.
He did it.
Yeah, he did it. It made me so. It really made me appreciate Bruce Timm to so much more than I already had. Like Bruce Timm is one of my idols, and just knowing what he has done, particularly for Adam West, just brought joy to my heart.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other honorable mentions before I give you guys my number one?
Laughing Fish.
Of course.
That's another honorable mention for me. I'm flipping through real quick to see. Look, here's the thing. I'm sure there's others that I'm going to miss because there's so many fantastic episodes to speak of. I think I've at least named my other top tier episodes. But I'm certain I'm missing some. So let's move ahead.
So my favorite episode, ironically, it does have Batman and Robin in it, but it does not feature the Joker. And it's only because of the fact that I could not, my number one episode had to feature my favorite Batman villain. And it is If You're So Smart, Why Aren't You Rich? It's the first appearance of the Riddler on Batman the Animated Series, voiced beautifully by John Glover. And it's like, the Riddler, for me, I go back once again to the Adam West show. Frank Gorshin, the genius that he is, loved his stuff on the show, loved his laugh, loved the riddles that he threw at Batman in those episodes. And I'm just like remembering when the show first came out and we were seeing which villain was showing up. And I was actually saying to myself, are they ever going to bring the Riddler into this? And then they finally show him up in season 2. And he's not wearing the green jumpsuit, but he's wearing a green suit with a derby hat, and he's got his cane, he's got his purple mask on. And what I really appreciated about Bruce Timm's depiction of the Riddler was they made him a real sophisticated criminal.
Yes.
Like they didn't make him insane.
No.
And I just loved that in this show, we do see the Riddler's true motives, and it's never to wreak havoc on the world. All he wants to do is outsmart Batman. That's
what
his
it's
goal.
all about. Yeah, that's what it's all about.
Because he's a brilliant mind in Edward Nygma, and he created this brilliant computer game. And then he's fired. It's sort of a little bit a take on the 1982 film Tron with Flynn about how they stole his space paranoids rights. So it's sort of a little familiar thing there. But when Nygma puts the Riddler outfit on for the very first time and he starts throwing out those riddles, and I just love how he's so suave and he's so calm.
Yeah.
And I just love his first encounter with Batman, where Batman literally shows him that he's able to track him down. And so he goes, my, might we actually have a brain under them?
Yeah.
And then he goes, but do you have the brawn to match? And he sends his henchmen on him. Like, I love those lines.
Yeah.
And I also really appreciate that they give Robin a really great role in this. They give him, he's not the one that's solving all the riddles. I like the fact that it's not Batman, that it's Batman and Robin that are solving all the riddles in this. But it's just also fun to actually see Batman and Robin actually trying to stop Riddler by playing a live version of a computer game.
Yeah. And you're right. It's great what it does for Robin because it positions him as as a character who can fill some gaps with Batman, and a true partner to Batman that comes across. That's a great point.
And there's also some really great fun quips in there. Like, I love how Robin's fighting one of the Riddler's henchmen. He tries to do the swipe the tablecloth from under the guy, and he's still mad, and he basically stops the guy, knocks him out unconscious, and just says, "I love that trick, but I can never make it work."
Yeah.
And I also love when they actually have to run the riddle of the Minotaur maze in the amusement park, and he asks Robin, "How far have you gotten into this game?" He goes, "Just about halfway." He's like, "Already I'm excited." Like, I love the banter between the two of them. It's really funny.
Yeah.
No, it's a fun episode. It's just a flat out fun episode. It's a great introduction to the Riddler in this world. And I just really once again appreciate the fact that he knows, meaning Bruce Timm, he knows how to design these specific characters. Like, do I make them over the top? Do I make them a little bit more taken back and a little bit more suave? Do I make them brooding? Like, what do I do with each and every one of them? And he just knew how to write the Riddler beautifully.
Everyone, but especially the Riddler. Also, I should add, just unlocking a memory, I realize I have seen that episode more than most others, maybe any other. When I was a kid, that was part of like a VHS tape I had. That was a collection of a couple episodes. It was not like a full season thing or anything. I forget how they would have sold it or what else was on it. But I remember having seen that episode in particular a lot. And I loved that episode specifically because of one of the things that you said drew you to it, the relationship between Robin and Batman in that episode. Yeah. I think that was the compilation.
And the other great episode. And the other thing that I really like is how the Riddler doesn't really show up on the show as often as some of the other villains, but every single time they put him on the show, they make it count. And I also really appreciate how they really try to make him create better riddles.
Yes.
I think what was really, really funny was in the very last episode that they wrote him in season 3, before they changed the animation, it was called The Riddler's Reform. And I remember he basically goes on television and he writes a series of numbers on a chalkboard. And Batman thinks that it's an address because he's going to be there. So he and Robin go to this address and nobody's there. And then he reflects on the scene again. And then he remembers that after he writes it, he flips the chalkboard over and he says, he flipped it over. So then he takes out the piece of paper and they reverse
flip it over.
Over. Oh my God, we're in the wrong place. Like, and I'm like, bravo, sir. Bravo. You did well. Like, Batman still solved it, but bravo. That's brilliant.
Yeah,
that's a great episode too. But I just love the fact that, and again, this is just me being a fan of the Riddler. I feel that the Riddler, even though he's one of the big rogues gallery names, I just feel that he just doesn't get the credit that he truly deserves. It's one of the main reasons why I'm very, very surprised by the fact they actually did make him the main villain in the latest Batman film, and also casting Paul Dano to play him. I mean, I wasn't too thrilled with what they did with his origin. They did his name is not even Edward Nygma. I was a little bit upset about that.
I guess they find that a little on the campy side, but I love it. And there's always that element of Batman somewhere in the background. So.
But I really appreciated that they really made him like a brutal villain, like from Saw. I really love that. And it's gotten me very excited because I am going to be reading the 6-issue Black Label miniseries that is actually going to be written by Paul Dano, Riddler Year 1. I just want to read something about the Riddler regardless. Yeah. So that wraps up our top 3 episodes. I mean, listen, we're going to talk about Batman Mask of the Phantasm at some point. I mean, next year is the 30th anniversary of the film.
Yeah.
And I'm just trying to figure out how we're going to do this and how we're going to incorporate it. I mean, I did this once before on my old channel where I actually discussed with an old friend of mine, Brian. We did a show just going over all of the Batman films in animation, like Batman Mask of the Phantasm, Batman Beyond, Return of the Joker, and even the bad ones too. Like, we did unfortunately have to talk about Beware the Batwoman, which is that movie's terrible.
But Mask of the Phantasm, top. But anyway, we'll talk about that at some point. We will.
We will. I mean, I basically say to people that Mask of the Phantasm is the greatest Batman film ever made.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
This is going to be a boring episode. We're just going to agree on that. And then
Yeah,
gush about the episode, the
But
movie.
I think that that's going to wrap it up for the two of us. I mean, I really
Yeah.
hope you all enjoyed it. I mean, if you haven't watched Batman the Animated Series, I mean, it just means you don't like comic stuff and you're just not interested in that. But I will say that if you've been watching all those Marvel movies and Disney Plus Marvel shows and you haven't even bothered to watch a single episode of the Batman Animated Series, that's where I'm going to point a finger at you and say, what in God's name are you doing? Go do this.
Yeah.
Go watch the show. See the fact that while Marvel may have conquered the big screen in a big way, see how DC has truly mastered small screen entertainment. Because I will tell you all, outside of a few Marvel animated shows like X-Men, Spider-Man, and to a degree Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes, Marvel has never been able to get small screen animation correct like DC has done all these years.
Yeah,
I will say that right
true.
now.
That's true. Yeah, this is worth checking out. Anyone who doesn't know it, anyone who hasn't seen it in a while, the reason that we're gushing about these episodes and that we have so many more on the honorable mention list, and the reason that Steve and I have somehow completely different top three, is evidence there that there's something for everybody. You will enjoy it. Check out at least the first season, which is pretty long. But watch a few and feel free to skip around. You know, watch the ones we talked about. Watch the ones that we named and didn't talk about. You will enjoy it.
Yes, and I always say, I mean, any show that can literally, or a series of shows that can literally create characters that were never in the comics to begin with and actually incorporate them. We mentioned Harley Quinn, but we also did not mention that Batman Beyond is a Bruce Timm creation.
Yes.
And now he's in the lexicon of DC Comics in the pages.
Yeah, he sure is.
Yes, and I will also say, watch, if you haven't yet, anyone out there, watch Justice League Unlimited's episode Epilogue and see how it goes and literally takes everything from Batman the Animated Series to Batman Beyond and connects
Just
it
puts it all together. Beautifully.
Yeah, beautifully done. Yeah, because nothing gave me more goosebumps than hearing the original Shirley Walker Batman the Animated Series theme song with guitars from Batman Beyond by Christopher Carter. That was just beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Anyway, everybody, thank you so much for watching. Andy and I, and of course the rest of the team over here on That's Comical, will definitely be back real soon. But in the meantime, we'll see you in the next one.